The PlayStation 5 is having some graphical artifacting issues. We got some better insight as to why. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Thank you for stopping by. If you're new here and you enjoyed what you see through this video, hey, maybe you consider subscribing and help this channel grow. But for now, let's jump into this. So with the launch of every new next generation console, there's always going to be issues at the beginning. There's always batches of consoles that don't make it out and people have to send it back and get new ones. And we are seeing that with both the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. Overall, since the launch of this next generation, it seems like the PlayStation 5 is having more different types of issues compared to the Xbox Series X. One of the big ones being artifacting and consoles crashing because of the GPU either overheating or not working. This here saying Sony's current gen console seems to come with a few unsolicited issues, one of which causes graphical artifacting, green screen errors, and can even cause the PlayStation 5 to crash. There are issues that are more common on PCs due to overclocking the computer's GPU, but a console such as the PlayStation 5 should not be experiencing these types of issues. So there are widespread issues, different types of issues, but one of the most interesting one is the artifacting that is occurring on the PlayStation 5. This here saying players have been reporting major graphical weirdness that appear whenever they attempt to play any game on their brand new consoles. The graphical bugs come in various forms, but all stem from some faulty cause. Players have experienced major artifacting, which is when a game's polygons behave irregularly, causing them to dart around the screen. Now, if we take a look at some of the issues that have been reported, this is obviously just a couple of people that are showing it off on social media. This is probably happening to more people, but they just don't talk about it or post it on social media. But basically, this is the artifacting that is occurring when trying to play a game. This is somebody having it while playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. This is the green screen effect. So when playing Spider-Man, the screen just stops and goes green and makes a weird buzzing sound. And then here playing Astrobot, some more artifacting. Now, why is this occurring? Now, this is the big question everybody wants to know. Now, there's a really good video that came out yesterday from Gamers Nexus. So Gamers Nexus is a big YouTube channel, 1.2 million subscribers, and they do videos on PC hardware reviews, game benchmarks, and component analysis. I don't know if you've heard of Gamers Nexus before, but they make great stuff, very unbiased, very in-depth, and you get a really good understanding of what's going on with PC parts, what's going on with the PlayStation 5 now. And they even said they're going to be doing an Xbox Series X version of this type of video going forward. So definitely stay tuned for that. But we get a better understanding now what is going on with the PlayStation 5 and what is most likely causing this artifacting. So I will link this video into the description below. It's about a 40-minute video. It's really in depth, and they can explain it way better than I can explain, as I'm not anywhere near an expert about this kind of stuff, but these guys definitely are. I watched the entire video, took some notes here, and basically what is going on is that the PlayStation 5 is running hot. And that is particularly on the memory running hot. Let's just take a quick listen to what he says about the memory and its temperature, and we'll go in and discuss about it.
Way to measure memory, and we acknowledge that. It's a pretty damn good one because you're taking a thermocouple right up against the side of it. But ideally, we would have access to the internal dye sensor to really get a confident, highly confident reading on the silicon temperature itself. Regardless of that, though, at 93 degrees, it's safe to say we are uncomfortable with the temperature that the memory is running, and that Sony definitely is heavily lacking in its design here. So all of the caveats aside, all the sort of testing methodology disclosures aside about the limitations of our sensitivity to the temperature, ultimately it is running hot for at least that memory module, and we would assume some of the other memory modules on the side furthest away from the heatsink. So Sony can improve here significantly, and the easiest ways it can do that in our past testing, and presumably Sony's done a lot of testing itself and should know more than us, but for one reason or another it didn't do things that would definitely improve performance here. Increasing the contact patch on the memory to this plate, this stupid low thermal conductivity plate, increasing the contact patch would definitely help improve memory thermals, because even though the silicon's in the middle of that casing, the heat's spreading through the whole thing, and pulling it away as fast as possible is always going to be beneficial.
Okay, so there you have it. He explains what's going on. The memory is running hot. It's running at 93 degrees, which is uncomfortable for the PlayStation 5 and uncomfortable for somebody who's very knowledgeable in this. And he explains the reasoning as to how Sony could improve the build going forward into a next generation of the PlayStation 5, a version 2 or something like that. Goes over a lot of other stuff, talks about the fan, talks about the noise. The noise apparently in the PlayStation 5 is really, really well done, so that is a great thing for the console. The fan itself is a very big fan, and it is running slow, and that really helps with the sound. He also mentions that if Sony wants to, they can really ramp up the fan to help with these heating issues, but at the same time that's going to really increase the noise, which was a major complaint with the PlayStation 4 Pro. But after seeing this, I'm thinking that Sony is going to have to start ramping up the fan on the PS5, creating more noise in order to get rid of a lot of that heat. Now, if you remember, before the launch of these consoles, there were lots of comparisons, a lot of people talking about which console runs hotter, taking a look at the analysis, taking a look at the teardowns, and kind of trying to come up with a conclusion as to which console was built better. I did a who built it better video, just a really armchair layman's analysis, kind of what I thought from my initial impressions from seeing the teardown of the PlayStation 5 and then looking at how the Xbox Series X is built. And I just said, hey, I think the Xbox Series X is built better. And I'm not an expert in this, it was just kind of what my initial thoughts were. I got a lot of hate on that video. We'll have to see what happens when they do the Xbox Series X video, see what kind of conclusion Gamer Nexus comes to, and then we'll probably have a way better understanding of which one is actually built better. But for right now, it's looking like the PlayStation 5 is definitely having issues because that memory is running hot, causing artifacting. Another interesting thing he talked about in this video was the use of the thermal image hotspot camera. And we've seen a lot of outlets use this thermal hotspot camera when these consoles were given out for review, saying, okay, there's no issues because of the thermal hotspot camera. We saw Digital Foundry use this camera, and Gamer Nexus pretty much says that this is a useless method of measuring the actual heat of a console, because you're really just measuring the heat of the external plastic plates on the PS5, and it doesn't give you any useful information to actually see how these consoles are running, which is a big reason why they did this video, so they could really go into the console and measure those thermals. Another super interesting point from this video was talking about the thermals and the exhausts being really hot, and him saying that you want to see the exhaust at a really hot temperature. As you remember, with the Xbox Series X, people put their hands above the fan, they feel that hot air coming out. But I said this in many videos before, and that is a good thing. If you feel hot air coming out of your console, it means it's doing its job, and Gamer Nexus really confirms that, saying that you want the exhaust to be hot because it means that the hot air is getting out and that the console is functioning properly. He also goes over how when just the menu of the PlayStation 5 is running, it is drawing power in the range of 100 watts, which he says is a lot for a console that isn't doing anything other than rendering, in his words, a needlessly fancy menu. And this is a big thing when you're looking at the menu being 4K. This was a big comparison between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 menu. PlayStation 5 menu being in 4K, looking beautiful on 4K displays, and then the Xbox Series X menu in 1080p still looks good, but not nearly as crisp and beautiful as the PlayStation 5's. And for a lot of people, they don't really care about the resolution of the UI. I mean, for me personally, I couldn't care less if the UI is in 1080p or 4K. I'm not sitting in the UI staring at it and being wowed over its actual visual fidelity. I'd rather a console be running cooler and not drawing as much power when sitting in the menu than a console holding a ton of power and running hotter because it's rendering at a higher resolution. So he mentions that as well, and I thought that was pretty interesting because you don't hear people talking about these types of things with these consoles yet. Now we were talking about the memory running too hot at 93 degrees, and that's probably the reason why artifacting is happening. The console, the PlayStation 5, is getting too hot and it is causing hardware issues. I haven't seen it yet personally, but to be completely honest with you, after beating Spider-Man within like the first 2 or 3 days that I have my PlayStation 5, I've barely touched my PS5. I haven't played it very much, so I may not know how well my PlayStation 5 is fully functioning until I get Ratchet and Clank, because that's the next game I'm really looking forward to. And hopefully I'll have no issues. I don't think I will. I'm thinking that I got a good console because I've left mine in rest mode, and I've only had one issue with it, and that was it had to rebuild the database. It randomly just turned off, and then I turned it on and had to rebuild everything. That's it, but besides that, I haven't seen any other problems with it myself, but we'll have to wait and see going forward once I start playing it more. But the most interesting thing, I know this is going to be a little weird, but the most interesting thing for me about this entire video was when he talked about these side panels on the PlayStation 5, and he says that those side panels are pretty much bad for heating because they cause the console to run at 5 degrees hotter than when he did tests taking off the side panels. Both of them, it ran 5 degrees or so cooler. And a way to solve this, he says, is basically if you cut slits into those panels, it will help. But why I find this interesting is because the design of the PlayStation 5 to me is really ugly. Like, I do not like the way that it looks after having it in my hands for a good period of time. And the design is just a really odd design with those panels that they're removable. And I'm very interested as to why they went with those removable panels now after watching this video, after seeing that they do not actually help with any of the cooling and actually make the console run hotter. A lot of people were thinking that they had those side panels on, shaped it the way they were so that they could wisp away all of the hot air in a more efficient manner. And it seems like that is not the case. It almost seems like it was a afterthought or a design choice that they had to do to make the console look the way that they wanted it to look by putting those panels on. Maybe this had to do with adding the disk drive. I have no idea why they went with those side panels, but it's pretty clear after watching this video that those side panels are a bad idea. It could also be because they wanted to make them interchangeable and then be able to profit off being able to customize those side panels. But we haven't seen Sony talk about any customization. That's all speculation, so that may not be it at all. It just really kind of boggles my mind a little bit why they added those side panels, especially because it makes the console run hotter. So basically, to break it all down, this is a 40-minute video. Like I said, go watch it if you really want an in-depth analysis. But takeaways from this video are there's a couple positives, but then there's a big negative. The positives being it runs at a good noise level. That is because they have a massive fan running slowly. Power consumption for the console is really good. Sony did a great job with the power consumption, especially with the power coming out of the console itself. The negatives are memory just runs too hot, and that is probably the reason people are having artifacting. This probably has to do with the overclocking and just the overall heats coming out of it, and the console not being built adequately to be able to deal with those heats. And two, Sony's probably going to have to ramp up the speed of those fans in order to get rid of the heat faster, in order to reduce the heat on the memory so that these issues start to go away. And this will cause the console to not run as quietly as it is doing now. I'm really excited to see his video on the Xbox Series X. They did say they are going to be doing a video on the Xbox Series X that will be coming, and just to see the difference in the comparison and how the Xbox Series X was built versus the PlayStation 5, and to see if my initial assumptions and theories without any expertise really in that area was correct. That just by looking at it, it seemed like the Xbox Series X was built better. But you know, we'll have to wait and see. I could be wrong, and he could make a video and it shows that the Xbox Series X is built even worse than the PlayStation 5. But yeah, at the end of the day, I think there's a lot of improvements that can come into the build of the PlayStation 5, and we're definitely going to see a new version of the PS5 probably sooner rather than later if these issues continue to arise and they are more widespread, as it does seem that there are quite a few issues out there with the PS5 in the way that's running, with the artifacting, with it shutting down, stuff like that. But yeah, that's it for me. Really awesome video by Nexus. I know I've said this a couple times in the video, but definitely go check it out if you're interested in an in-depth analysis on it. Let me know what you think about this in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the overall build of the PlayStation 5. If you have a PlayStation 5, let me know if you're having any issues with it. And let me know what you think about the temperature of the memory and how hot it is running, and do you think that is the main reason that these artifact issues are occurring? Thank you guys all for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button. If you dislike it, hit that thumbs down button. If you're new to this channel and enjoyed what you see throughout this video, hey, maybe consider subscribing to help this channel grow. Thank you guys all for watching. Really appreciate all your support, and I'll catch you in the next video.